The $1,000,000 question: how do entrepreneurs transition from self-employed to owning a business that turns a profit? My name is Chris Waters, and this podcast has the $1,000,000 answer. Welcome to CEO Secrets. Hey guys, it's Chris Waters with CEO Secrets. I'm really excited about our guest today. I have brought in somebody uniquely positioned to help you learn about marketing and building your business. Joe here on our podcast today. What's super fascinating about Joe is that he coaches and helps registered investment advisors. Registered investment advisors are folks in the financial game that help people manage retirement, investment accounts, and things like that. And Joe's actually never been a registered investment advisor, yet he coaches over 1,500 registered investment advisors to help them increase their business. And ultimately, I think, Joe, in a thesis of what you do is you're a high-level accountability partner and performance coach to help drive results. And I think there's a lot people can learn from you that applies universally to a lot of other different industries. So, Joe, welcome to CEO Secrets.
Chris, it's great. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to digging in with you today.
So you've been in this world of performance coaching now for well over 20 years.
Yeah.
What led you into this? You weren't in registered investment advisory, but you got into performance coaching. What was the light bulb moment 20 some odd years ago that got you into this?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief because we could take the whole episode just talking about my story here. So I've always been a student of personal development, self-development, read Think and Grow Rich when I was 17 years old. And growing up, I did not grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I did not go to the best colleges. In fact, I never went to college. I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I didn't say successful entrepreneurs, just entrepreneurs. Yep. And, back in the very early 90s, I got hooked up with the Tony Robbins organization with one of his affiliates, and they were looking for someone to rep Tony and the businesses that he had in New Jersey and Lower Manhattan. And so basically what happened was, I did that for about 2 years. My wife was 8 months pregnant. And Chris, at the time, the way the model worked was that it was commission-only gig, right? And so I would basically cold walk wirehouses, insurance companies. At the time, the RA world was very small. And we would just sell Tony training programs, cassette tapes, corporate training. What a lot of people at the time didn't know about him was we had a big corporate training outfit beyond the infomercials that you guys would see, late at night. And so I did it for about 2 years. And what was happening was that I'd have like these investment advisors, and I would get to know them because I kind of see them every couple of weeks on my kind of route, if you will. And they started asking me questions about, hey, what do you think about this goal? Or I'm stuck here, or how would you handle this? And so it's really just, if you think about whether you're in the finance game, in the real estate game, in the mortgage game, or anything, your income is going to be directly proportional to your performance, and your performance is directly proportional to your mindset, how you view things, how you look at things, and then your habits and your disciplines and so on. So I did that, and my wife was 8 months pregnant, and I got I was getting burnt out because there's no relational aspect of it. I sold, I ate. If I didn't sell, I didn't eat. Well, there's only so many Tony books. There's only so much of anything to go around, and I'd be kind of out of luck. And so I said to my wife, I said, look, I think there's a business here. I don't know what it is, but I think there's something here. So she literally gave me, we're 8 months pregnant with my first child, and she goes, I'm going to give you 30 days to prove this. Otherwise, you have to go get a job, a real job. And I know who I am. I'm unemployable. I'm not good with rules and other people telling me what to do. So what I did was I went back to my clients at the time in New York, and I basically said, hey, I've left the Robbins organization. I am a peak performance consultant. That's exactly what I called myself. And I said, I'll give you an hour of my time. Bring me your challenges. And at the end of that hour, I'm going to slide you a blank invoice. You put any number you want on it, cash or check only, no credit cards. And so basically, that's how I started my career, was just putting myself out there and doing what I do. And, fast forward now 26 years later, I've done over 56,000 individual coaching sessions, Currently work with 1,500 different advisors in all ways, shapes, and forms, several different countries. So, I was coaching when this was not a thing.
I want to extract the brilliance, man. How do you, so you're obviously not teaching registered investment advisors on what to invest money in.
Oh, no.
You are pushing them to get great results, and obviously it's been very successful because you have over 1,500 people, which is crazy. That's amazing.
Yep.
So what are the, behaviors and activities that they're doing day in and day out after they've got the right mindset? What are they doing?
Well, no. So the mindset first. Let's talk about the mindset first. Then let's talk about the other. Because what a lot of, and I don't care what business you're in, the fatal mistake people make when they're trying to elevate their game, they get caught up in the what do I need to do story. What do I need to do to double my business? What do I need to do? And that's never the right question. The first question is, who do you need to become? Because if you can't figure out your next level of identity, the actions and behaviors don't matter. They'll never take. You'll never be consistent with deploying them. So for like an example, if I've got a client and they say, hey, I want to go from $1 million of top line to $2 million of top line. Okay, cool. First question, why is it an absolute must? If they can't sell me on their compelling reasons why it's not like, hey, I'd like to do this or it'd be really cool to do. No. In our world with everything that comes at us today, if you're not dialed into exactly it's a must, it will never happen. Some of it might, but you're never going to get the whole thing. So number one, why is it a must? Number two, tell me about how we're going to do it. And that's where hey, how do I do this? In your game, right, the real estate game, if somebody wants to go from this amount of dollars of rev to this, how many listings, you know the recipe to get somebody from point A to point B. That's always the easiest thing because that's like getting on a whiteboard or getting the calculator out, figuring it out. Simple stuff.
Yeah.
But the next two pieces, who do you need to become is really the key question. Because if I've got somebody doing $1 million of top line, hey, you know what that person looks like? I know what that person looks like. I know their mindset, their habits, their behaviors, their beliefs, their action, how they operate, all of that. This will get us that. So
I'm taking a lot of notes, by the way. So when you see me typing, I'm like,
oh, I'm not worried about it. That's fine. Well, good news. I hope you're recording this, right?
So I'm recording it and I'm taking notes. So
if I want to double. The first, after I ask myself the why is it a must, because I gotta have buy-in, right? Because there are going to be days you're not going to want to do it. You're not going to do what's necessary.
Let me ask you some questions about that. Let me interrupt you and ask a question.
Sure.
So what are some bullshit musts versus like some true like musts to accomplish something?
It's not even like the bullshit stuff. I'm glad we're now talking like real people now. So it's not so much that there's a bullshit must. It's not sold to the person. So it sounds like, well, what I'm really going to try to do is grow my top line by 20% this year. It's in the languaging. When I listen to somebody, like internal dialogue, we talk about mindset. Well, people have been talking about mindset for decades, right? So what is mindset? How do you define it, right? And to me, there's 5 things. What you believe, what's important to you, how do you determine that's important to you, your self-identity, your self-image, the man or woman in the mirror, and your internal dialogue, right? 5 things. And so if you're talking to yourself like, man, I hope this really happens, or I should really try to, right? You have that dialogue going on, you're not committed. So the first thing I do is I listen to how people explain things to me or how they announce or declare things to me. And if it's soft, dude, I said, look, man, you're not locked in on this. This is like wishy-washy. If I was an angel investor, I wouldn't give you a penny. I'm not buying what you're selling me because you haven't bought you yet, right? So that's where we start with that process first. Is they got to convince, because if they can't convince me of their goal or mission, they're dead. Ain't gonna happen. They may get some results, but they're not gonna get what they need. It's not gonna happen, right? Bottom line. So we vet all that, right? And that's part of it. So to me, like a bullshit must, if you will, would be, it's like, well, I want to do a little bit better. Hey, what I really want to do, Joe, I want to be better. I want to make more money. Okay, well, how do we define it? Here's $1. What do you want, right? So I think it has to be, in my mind, Chris, the goal has to be where, and I look at in our game, I don't care if it's the finance game, the real estate game, the mortgage game, it's very hard to say I'm going to do X in a linear aspect. There's variables, my variable in my game. A client of mine gets a referral. It could be a $50,000 portfolio. It could be a $500,000 portfolio or $5 million portfolio, right? In your game, a listing could be a $250,000 listing or a $25 million listing, right? So there's so many variables that, okay, let's set up the rules of the game that we can win. So what I do is I say, look, let's do ranges, right? So what's the minimum that you'll accept in terms of annual growth? And then what's the brass ring? And I want like a gap. Like I want a range like that, a big target that I can hit versus a pass-fail goal. A lot of people set pass-fail goals, and what they don't realize is that, first of all, they set them high, which is okay. But then if they don't think they're on track for it, what do most people do? They abandon them. They kind of say, you know what, that's not going to happen for me this year. So they go off and do something else. So for me, it's really about locking my clients in on, okay, why is it a must? How are we going to do that? And then who do we need to become? Because I'm telling you, the $1 million guy is not the $2 million guy. And in my game, your game, the person has to get there first. The bank account follows soon thereafter. It is not the other way around, right? And so to me, it's about helping them really essablish that new identity. Well, what do you have to believe? What has to be important to you? How do you have to measure it? When you look at your mirror, what do you need to see? Because if you don't like your self-image, then hey, go to the gym, change your wardrobe. Like if you like the man or woman in the mirror and you're like, I'm an imposter, I'm lucky, you have all that BS going on, you're going to sabotage your game, right? And then the fifth one is the conversation with yourself every day, right? Because if it's like, I'm lucky, you're never going to take ownership of it to go do it. And the beauty of this, it's all up to you. Like there's nothing I just said that you need a third party to go make happen for you. Mm-hmm. You've got to just take control of your own. I call it the game. You got to take care of your own. You got to take control of your own game, basically.
What is it Tony Robbins says? He says most people make a decision when something is at such a high level of pain, you feel forced.
Yeah, pain, pleasure, right, yes. So most people don't take action on things until the pain of not taking action overwhelms the uncomfortableness of taking action, basically, right? And you know this from being a successful realtor and running a big team, leadership is uncomfortable. It just is, if you get up in the morning and you're comfortable, then your game's not big enough.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people seek comfort. And in the performance-based game, like our games, if you get up in the morning and you're comfortable, hey, then you that's a dangerous place. Comfort zones in our game are dangerous. They're like cancer. They're the silent killer, right? So I'm always pushing my guys and gals. And not that they need more money, but money is a resource. You can give it away, start foundations, a lot of things you do it with capital, right? So grow or die. I force, if you're going to work with me in any way, look, we're in growth mode. And I've got clients in their mid 60s and early 70s that are still committed to growing their revenue streams by, 10, 15, 20%. They could retire. They don't need the money. They just like the game, right? And I keep calling it that because that's how we like to look at it.
So would you argue that essentially most people get stuck and maybe stagnant because they are comfortable?
Yeah. So like in my world, when somebody comes into our profession here, a lot of people end up doing what I call needs-based goal planning, which is, oh man, if I could just make X amount of dollars a year, like their world is, okay, I can pay my they think about survival. Right? So they go scarcity survival. That's where, look, whether you're a realtor, financial advisor, the first time, unless you got some backing economically, you're in scarcity survival mode for the first couple of years. You're trying to validate, hey, this is what I need to be doing, and can I make some money at it, right? The problem with that, though, I find, is that you create those habits and patterns of how you set goals. You kind of keep things close to the vest, and what happens is you just kind of eke it a little bit. Now, there are exceptions to that rules, like guys like you just kind of elevate. But for most people in our games, they kind of get caught up in this kind of trap where their goal is to make enough money to be comfortable, right? And then guess what? If that's your goal, that's what you get, right? It's the way the world works, plus or minus 10, 20%. So for me, it's about not increasing my client's overhead, like go get a bigger house or get a third car, anything like that. But why do we want to continue to grow? Because if you stop growing, it's boring. And this is a habit-based business. You kind of come back and then you end up playing office all day. There's no emotional juice or drive.
So let's say you're self-aware of all this. You're self-aware that
that's a big assumption for most people, but go ahead.
Let's say you're self-aware that you are in a comfortable place.
Yep.
But yet you're uncomfortable because you know personally you're not growing and you lack fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? And you're at that pain point where you're like getting really, really frustrated with lack of growth. Mm-hmm. But you don't do anything about it because you're comfortable. Like, how do you push that person to take action and get results?
It goes back to the why. So if somebody's comfort zone is $500,000 a year top line, and that's where they've been like kind of last several years, right? Try little breakouts, but it doesn't really happen. And it's just kind of ebbs and flows that way. You say to me, hey, what would make you excited about your day? If I can double my revenue, I said, what would you do with it? And I got to get them on a mission, right? We'd have to create a vision, a plan. In fact, what I do with all my clients, we have this 5-year strategic plan that we build out, which is ideal lifestyle, bucket list. Like, I don't just look at their business and say, okay, let's go make some more money because that's a cool thing to do. I want to know how they're going to deploy the capital. Like, if you want to go to New Zealand for a month, then let's figure that out. And let's tie some things to it, right? If you want the lake house, or hey, I live here, but I want to live on Lake Austin, let's figure that out, right? Let's create a game that by growing your revenue, you get this. Because at some point, money it doesn't mean much if you already have a level of success. And for a lot of my clients, quite frankly, we're now into the legacy game, where it's about foundations and giving back and leaving a footprint, an imprint on what's important to them, right? So there's different forms of compelling reasons. Some of it could just be monetary. Some of it could be, experiences. It could be things. It could be contribution. And everybody's driven by different elements of that recipe. So it's not like one thing fits all. My job as a coach is to help identify those drivers inside of my client's mindset and value system, and then create the game around that, because now it's their game. I don't do cookie cutter stuff. Like, I create it so that it's theirs. And they get up every morning and they do our 8-step protocol, which kind of get like an athlete has their pregame game. We have a pregame scenario we do, and off we go. So it's really about that. And I think the scariest part for any entrepreneur is really that comfort zone, because once you're there, man, everything can break down real quick.
If you turn on the TV and you see these people that do, this is kind of an extreme example, but you see on TV these interventions where people drug or alcohol, whatever, family circles them and like pushes them to go in rehab, and then they don't ever end up getting cured, right? My point of saying that story is, like, in sales and entrepreneurship, if somebody doesn't have, ultimately, I think we'd all agree the reason they don't make it successfully out of rehab and stay sober is because they don't have the internal desire.
That's number one. And the second thing is they never create that new identity. They still identify with the old person. They never said, okay, that was that. This is my X point. Now this is me over here. I understand it's part of my past, but I'm not going to identify with it anymore. Right?
So my point to that example is, let's say, for example, you're running a business and you recruit salespeople and like you push them to the max, like and you get to a point where they're happy, like they're content, and it's like you want them to perform up here, but they're happy here, right? Like, as a performance coach, do you think you can actually push somebody above where they want to be, or is it one of those situations where if they haven't personally figured out like they need the internal desire, no matter how great of a performance coach you are, you're not going to push them above that level?
Correct. That's exactly right. And look, it's not a knock on our game. It's just that's 100% accurate, because if they don't have compelling reason to go do something, I don't care what training you give them, cajoling, sales programs, bonus scenarios. If they don't equate, hey, I want to go do it and here's why, It's not going to, it has to be a must, right? And the biggest challenge I have, and you're kind of hitting a nail on the head a little bit differently, but it means the same thing, which is you get somebody, like you said, you get them to a certain spot. That's the word comfortable. And they're cool, right? Hey, I'm like, in their mind, this is my version of the ultimate success. I'm where I am. And quite frankly, a lot of times when you really peel their onion back and really get to talk to them, a lot of times they don't think they deserve anything more than this. And they think that they're lucky to have what they have. And that's a conversation that, you only get, you're not going to go into sales meeting and get that conversation. But when you really talk to them and say, look, what is it truly that's holding you back? If I said to you, you had to double your business in the next 12 months, or I'm going to come and kill your entire family, and that's an absolute promise, what would you do? And I use that example, and I always qualify a little bit, obviously. And they say, well, I would go do this, I would do that, I would do that. So it's not a question you know what to do. You're just not willing to do it because it's not compelling for you. So, I just made it compelling in like a hypothetical, right? From that perspective. So they just don't have there's not a big enough want. There's not a big enough why to get them into a different game. They're comfortable.
So on the compelling reason side, you mentioned that one of the things you do is the 5-year plan. Yep. What are some of the other tools you leverage to try to help people come up with those compelling reasons to take action?
Great. So I, in my space, the advisor space, I am the only coach that actually hosts a 3-day live strategic planning workshop. We fly, they pay. We fly them into Fort Lauderdale. We do it overlooking the ocean for 3 days. And we do current benchmarks, we do current mindset, future mindset. We do a sunrise goal setting workshop on the beach. Then we jump into a 5-year module, 1-year module, marketing module, branding module, business development module. And then what we do, we take it all, and my guys and gals play with this every day. It's a 90-day game plan, 2 pages. They look at this every morning to identify, associate. And so we take a 5-year vision and we extrapolate it down to a series of 90-day mini plans. So we just kind of pull it in because you can't, you're not going to read 80 pages every day. You're just not going to do that.
Right.
But can you spend 10 minutes on this over a cup of coffee going over it? Yeah, you can. So it's really about that. And then to me, it's all about the day. So if I can get one of my clients to have 5 solid days, Monday through Friday, execute, right? That's all that matters. Not, hey, what did I do yesterday? What do I need to do next month? But build and execute your business in the moment. Do your strategic planning, but execute today. Don't worry about what you got to do 2 weeks from now. What are you going to do today? One of my mentors early in my career said to me, one of the best questions you can ask yourself in the morning, and then the second question in the evening is, number one, what am I going to do? What am I going to do to grow my business today? And then subsequently, what did I do to grow my business today? You get in the habit of asking yourself those questions, first thing and last thing, it will make you very aware of what's going on inside of your game.
Joe, what do you do? Or do you have any other businesses besides Magellan in your coaching and your existing clients? Are you, involved in other stuff, real estate investing? Like, what's your world look like?
Oh, great question. So I do none of that. Obviously we invest money and we take care of my family here, but number one, I'm very passionate about what I do. I lucked into what I do. I'm the first one to admit that it was not by design. It's just kind of, and quite frankly, Lower Manhattan, it was, advising. If I was in San Francisco, I probably would have done this with, technology, right? Or in Austin, technology, right? So it's just the way it happened. So I'm very much a focus guy. I've dabbled with other things throughout my career, right? And here's what I've learned. If somebody else is handling all that stuff, I'm okay with that. But I can't. I want to stay here. I live and breathe what I do 24/7. I love it.
How do you stay focused? I mean, if you've got that serial entrepreneurial bug, when you get excited about new opportunities, how do you stay focused?
Well, it's I listened to, I can't remember the person's name on the podcast years ago. He said one of the great things all very successful people do is learn the art of no. And that's a duality. No to other people and then no to yourself. Like, no, we're not going to do that because it's a distraction. right? And I've watched clients of mine who are very successful inside of the advisor game go off and do crazy stuff. Go be partners in a restaurant, go build office buildings. And you know what? 75% of the time, they turn out not to be good. You know, they're like, they know this game, they don't get spread out. So, and look, I've got clients who are almost venture capitalists. They invest in a lot of businesses and they're super successful, but they're wired for it and they're committed to it, right? There's no free lunch. So, you know, you can't sit there and say, well, I want to kind of do my thing 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, but I want to build an empire. It doesn't work that way. There's no free lunch in what we do, right? So
when you're like, speaking of venture capital, so when you're looking at a business opportunity, one of the things they're paying attention to is the potential addressable market and target addressable market based off what you think you can do from a penetration perspective, from a sales perspective. Mm-hmm. So what if you're somebody like watching this podcast and you've built a business, it's super successful, but you know, you've hit a ceiling with that specific business and you have to make radical changes to take it to the next level. Maybe it's from like an organizational structure perspective, and perhaps you don't want to make those massive changes and you want to, you know, pivot and pursue another opportunity. Do you completely, you know, burn the ships and shut down the thing you're involved in and then transition over to the next opportunity, or do you try to do both? What's your opinion there?
I think there's something in the middle, which is I look to bring in somebody who would be a good steward of the current business, whether that's an equity situation or some other type of, you know, I would want to have somebody come in and run that. If it was viable and it was cash flow positive and it employed people and it added value to other people, you know, I would kind of probably be loath. I would probably either want to do a strategic transaction, i.e. sell it to somebody who would take care of it, or I would look to maybe bring in somebody to run it for me, and whether that's equity or not. I think the worst thing any entrepreneur can do is to sit in the captain's chair of a boat they're not excited about anymore. You know, you just kind of hang, and you know, your mind is wandering. You're not engaged. You're there physically, but you're like you'd rather be doing something else. That's not leadership. So you know, and that's one of the things I tell all my clients is, look, find a way to engage in this thing, and if you can't find a way, then please sell it, because don't hang. You do nobody no good. First off, it's a waste of your time. Yeah, your wallet looks good and your bank account's kind of neat. I get that. But you're not going to be a happy person. You're just going to be hanging out. It's like it's a well-paid job is what you're going to have. There's no excitement in that, right? So
what's been your in the service industry, you know, like registered investment advisors, like real estate agents.
Sure.
What's the valuation on a business from your experience?
Recurring revenue, 2 to 2.5x top line. What we're looking at, right? And that's normally paid out either in a one-time transaction or paid out over 5 years. And that's on recurring rev, like fee-based business. If it's more transactional, like we're just buying stuff and commission-based, it's going to be probably these days, maybe 1x, totally different valuation scheme, right? So really, look, advisory business is really a cash flow business. You know, the equity is really client goodwill, because there's no contractual obligation. So we operate, at least in my world, we operate in the goodwill game and basically in the cash flow game. You know, there are a lot of transactions. There's a lot of consolidation. A lot of advisors are leaving because they're not that they're aging out, but they want to go. So there's a lot of consolidations going on. A lot of roll-ups going on right now in my space. Do people
have the money to buy these people that are?
Oh yeah, man. There's a ton of private equity in our space.
So these guys with the book of business are selling to PE firms?
Yeah, or to other advisors who are backed by PE firms. Like one of my clients, you know, I don't know if we'll get it done this year or not, but he's gonna, you know, he's got a PE firm that wants to give him $200 million. They want to give him $200 million to go shopping in the space. Right? There's just a lot of money. There's just in my because again, if we're doing fee-based asset management, it's a recurring revenue business. I mean, it's a great business to be in, and nothing gets being a realtor, but you sell a house, you sell a house. Now you got to go sell another house, right? Yep. Unless you become an owner, and then that's a whole different scenario at that point.
So in a more transactional business, let's say real estate brokerage, for example.
Yeah.
You know, what I've learned is typically at certain top line revenue numbers, the multiple increases What's been your opinion? What have you seen from an exit perspective that people realize? Like for example, at 5 million top line revenue, what's multiple 10 million? What have you seen?
In my game, there's a couple different things. It's not just top line, because it's a top line and it's not well organized. So if you're gonna evaluate a business in our business, number one, how old are the clients? Because if you're gonna be going to way more funerals than weddings, that cash flow is going to fall off as people die. Chances are you're not going to really retain that next generation. So we look at that, the quality of how the business is run, how the investments are done, what products or what strategies are they in, things like that. Your human capital, how your support staff, are they staying, stuff like that. The real estate in our business really doesn't matter that much anymore. It used to matter. It matters a little bit less than that. So yeah, if you're a larger entity, let's say a $5 to $10 million top line. That would probably be $500 million to $1 billion of money that you run for people. There's a little bit higher multiple, and I have seen 3x deals, where it was 3 times top line, and we can still cash flow positive. We can still make them cash flow positive from year one, because there's that kind of margin in the business. If it's run well, if you take owner comp out and everything else, there's still a lot of cash flow there to fund debt or acquisition costs, depending how we're structuring the deal.
The reason I'm asking all these questions is because I'm willing to bet there's a lot of people that are watching this podcast and on YouTube, and we'll post this in our Facebook group, but there's a lot of people watching this with a really big business, and they're not being a good steward of their business, and they're sitting in the captain's seat, and they need a compelling reason to get out and find the next venture. And so that's why I'm interested in talking to you about kind of the exits you've seen for people in the service type business. Speaking of exits, and something interesting in the service business I've seen is that you typically have to do these earnouts, right? So you get paid a chunk of money up front, and then they make you stay on board for like 2 to 3 years. And it's like, man, I can make just as much money from the net income staying on board 2 to 3 years. So like, why should I even sell the business?
That's right. And that's why sometimes you're better off bringing somebody in. When I'm sure real estate is very similar to my game. It's really a cash flow business. And you got client goodwill. There's not a lot of hard assets associated with it typically. And in my game, I get retained by guys who say, look, I want to work with you for a couple of years. I want to get everything organized, get everything structured out, and then I want to put it on the market, and I want to go. And I would say 9 out of 10 times when we start getting into it and we create a new possibility for somebody, they say, you know what? Why would I want to sell this for 2.5x? After like 3 or 4 years, I'm in the hole. Yep. And most of the guys I work with, like they're not good at retirement. They like vacations, but like there's only so much fishing they want to do, only so much golf they want to do, almost only so much travel they want to do. So I've seen guys leave, and like 4 years later they go, I'm thinking about getting back in. I go, you're 67 and you sold at 65. Talk to me about this, right? Yeah. And I said, and I've had a couple of situations like that, and I'm blunt. I said, look, you're a dummy. I told you not to sell your business. I said, let's go hire Junior. Let's go bring somebody in to run it. Why don't you be CEO emeritus, right? And just kind of, have an office, come in, don't run the day to day, but be the strategic visionary above it, right? Be that person. You don't need to be in the trenches. So a lot of times, like in my world, I just have to create a different seat, a different chair for somebody. And then let somebody else sit in that more tactical chair and let them run the business, right? We can influence. It's still our baby. That's a much better cash flow scenario than trying to sell it. The multiples aren't high enough in my mind.
I know this isn't in your sphere, and I'm asking you a lot of questions unrelated to the stuff you coach about, but just
that's okay.
2+ decades of coaching people, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of different things. But I think it's it's relevant for people to understand, like, the exit strategy in a service-based business isn't that great until you get it. And you got to get it really big to make it good, and then it makes more sense to just find somebody to run it for you.
Yep, it does. You're not going to get 15x, 17x. You're not going to get a heavy valuation because most service businesses are goodwill based.
What are you typically finding is that you got to compensate somebody to find somebody that's like the CEO of a 100-person service-based business?
Again, I think it really, so, I'll answer from mine. I can tell you from my side what it looks like. I think it's going to depend. So I just had somebody bring in a president because they want to go kind of stuff. And, so it's a combination. It's going to be probably, I think, 350 on a base, and that's, 350,000. And then they're going to get performance. And we like to do, my recommendation is let's do performance-based deals so that they have skin in the game, whether that's a cash flow bonus, equity options, right? Ideally, you want somebody to feel like it's there. So we're always probably going to figure out an equity component of it if it makes sense. So that's what we would look at. And from an owner perspective, I just think that's just such a better play, unless you really are so burnt out that you say, you know what, I just got to wash my hands of the whole thing and I don't want to be involved at all. Then mentally, that's probably the right call for you. But I really like the idea of structuring, I like orderly things. So if I, like, for example, I've got somebody who's already declared to me, I want to be done with the day-to-day in 5 years, part of their 5-year plan. So great. So we've got maybe 3 years to go find the person. So we're not going to wait till year 3. Let's start looking now. Because we can be super picky with who we want, right? Because we'll end up talking to a lot of people. We'll probably do some retained search on it, see what shows up, and do that. So, to me, it's not about waking up one day saying, okay, I got to get out of here, like in the next 30 days. Like, do it orderly, right? Like, think, if you're CEO founder, you've got to think, you got to act tactically, but you got to think strategically. Mm-hmm. So you got to get out there, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and think about how do you want, and really more so about how you want your personal world to work, then figure out how your business needs to work so that works there. Because what a lot of guys do is take care of the business game, and they kind of shoehorn the personal stuff around it, right? I think it's the exact opposite. What's going to excite you about this? The business funds that. It's the economic engine of that, not the other way around.
I want to change subjects for a minute, and maybe we can finish out kind of talking about this topic. But, I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this are big Tony Robbins fans. And, it's been, what you said, 23 years since you were in the Tony Robbins.
Probably closer to 28, 30. It's been a while, long time.
So what have been like the unique kind of deviations you've stumbled upon and learned that have kind of taken your knowledge from what, as like a baseline here, learning from Tony Robbins training to here? What are those little deviations and variables you've picked up and learned through experience and ahas and that's a very loaded question, so I'll do my best to answer it. I learn as much from my clients as I teach them. So to me, I'm like a bee who likes to pollinate a lot of plants, and I've done that for decades. I'm very good, we talk about unique ability. What I'm very good at doing is decipher why is somebody successful. I'm very good at asking that question to myself and observing how they do things, and I'm able to pull out the recipe. And I've done that, tens of thousands of times in my career. So, what I would say is, so first off, it's not like one little thing, it's probably tens of thousands of little things. But there are some quote unquote truisms, if you will, some commonality. So no matter what you do for a living, the first thing is, whether you're an advisor, a realtor, a mortgage professional, anything that's performance-based, right? Where your income is directly proportional to how you perform. So if that's the case, question number one I'd ask is, how much money do you invest in you? So what's your personal development budget, right? And all my clients have one. I like it to be anywhere from 5 to 10% of top line, right? So when you start out, ain't much of a top line, right? So that may be a couple grand a year, maybe, right? But you do something with that. As you progress, you keep that rule in place, 5 to 10%. I like 10 because I like it. I like big. So, when you have $500,000 of income, 10% is $50,000 PD budget. You can hire a damn good coach, personal trainer, whatever you need, you go do. When you get to $1 million, 10%, now I got $100,000 to reinvest back in myself, right? You can hire the best of the best. Like literally could. You can, you go hire the best of the best. And when a lot of people that come to mind for you, by the way, in the personal world. Like, let's say you got $100,000 to spend on personal development.
I'd go see Brandon Bouchard. I'd go see Garrett White. For me, and I'm going through my bucket list stuff, right, if you will. Brandon Bouchard, Garrett White, Craig Ballantyne, Bedros Keuilian. Trying to think. I'm going through my other list. So I'd seek out other experts, mentors. I'm a big believer in mastermind groups. I think being involved in the mastermind group would be Joe Polish. 25X. I would look at that. Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, things like that. I would want to be in a peer group where I'd have like-minded individuals, and I do that in the advisor space. I create those. That's one of my business models, right? I create mastermind mentorship groups, and we meet around the country, as a matter of fact, doing those. So I would look at that, quite frankly, and then whatever else I needed. If I needed a personal trainer because I wanted to make sure my body was in shape, I would do that. If I wanted to go hire a concierge doctor or an anti-aging doctor, life extension doctor, because I wanted to make sure my body was going to be at peak throughout my 50s, 60s, 70s, I would go do that. Whatever it took to make me better. And the point I want to drive at this is, and this is fascinating. I had a conversation with a client 3 weeks ago. He's all freaked out. He's trying to decide whether or not he should, Joe, 10%, that's a big number. It's going to cause me not to be able to max out my 401k and my retirement planning and stuff like that. And I said, okay, I get that. So let me ask you a question. Let's just say it's $50,000. So you put $50,000 into a retirement vehicle, whatever. What do you expect to get back on? He goes, 6 to 8%. Okay, great. Okay. When you put that money at $50,000, where does that money go? Well, it goes into whatever, an ETF, a mutual fund, wherever. So fine. Where do those managers deploy that money? They give it to who? They give it to Bill Gates,
right.
Jeff Bezos, right? They invest it in other companies, right? So you're taking your $50,000 and you're going to invest it in other companies for a little bit of a tax deduction and 7% return.
Right.
What if you took that same $50,000 and invested by yourself, which is by the way still tax deductible, right? Professional education. I reinvested back in myself. If you got the right coach, or you got a personal trainer, or you got a lot of energy, or you joined the right mastermind group, what kind of yield could you make on that investment?
Yeah.
Some guys could double, triple it, right? But they don't. But the problem is, Chris, most people don't think that way. If you're an entrepreneur, the most valuable resource you have is you, and yet you're not willing to reinvest. They'd rather go invest in a restaurant.
Why is that so hard for people? By the way,
well, you know why? It's what it is. It's an elegant distraction.
Yeah.
Because if I'm doing these other things, guess what I'm not doing? I'm not looking here.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of guys don't want to play that game, And so to me, if you're going to reinvest in yourself, that means you got to take inventory of yourself. Right? A lot of guys, no, I'm going to go do that. Or I'm sure in your space is mine. Oh, here's this new marketing program. I'm going to go reinvest. I'm going to go invest in that. I'm going to take $20,000 and put it there. Yeah, but here's the thing, dude. You're unhealthy. Your attitude sucks. You don't believe you deserve to be successful. Why are we going to go spend $20,000 on marketing when if you happen to have to go see somebody, you're going to sabotage the shit out of it because you don't believe you deserve it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the game. So it's just the crazy stuff that I've seen in my career because I deal with human beings all day long. That I sit there and say, and when I talk about it, like somebody like you, like reinvesting yourself, it's like that makes that's so sensical, right? Yeah, it makes total sense. But yet, oh man, I got to maximize my K plan, dude. You already told me you're not going to retire. What the hell difference does it make?
Yeah.
Right. You're going to play this game to your 70s. You'll have plenty of money. Don't worry. Why are you worried about it in your 40s? You need to get yourself right now so you can go produce $30 million in your career for your family. Let's not worry about that. Just rules are what most entrepreneurs have to understand is the rules that they see and hear and listen to in the normal world do not apply to us. Mm-hmm. We're different. And you have to identify with that. As soon as the day I decided I was never going to retire, I said, well, why am I killing myself trying to save all this money and do all this stuff? I'm going to live my life. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to go take my trips. I'm going to drive the cars I want to drive, fly the way I want to fly. Whether I die with $3 million or $10 million, I'm dead. What difference does it make? I might as well enjoy the process of getting there. right? Most guys don't think that way. They think in the scarcity mindset, going forward.
Joe, you've dropped a lot of nuggets in the last 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
What, for people that have gained a lot of value out of this and learned a lot from you, how can they reciprocate the value? If there's someone watching this and not in the registered investment advisor game, which maybe a large percentage of people on here, I guess what's the value you can get out of
it's funny when I knew you and I were going to do this thing, I asked myself that same question, and this has been very refreshing for me because typically I do industry stuff, right? So just to kind of be able to talk about success and talk about it in more of an opaque manner, right? Not really driving toward RIAs or this or that. Yep. If anybody got one thing out of this and you say, you know what, that was valuable, just, what I'd say, just find me on LinkedIn, connect with me. I've got no agenda with anybody. Build my tribe. And what I would say also is pay it forward. I was very lucky in my career, very early in my career, like I'm talking about in my mid-20s, I was asked to join a group of very senior gentlemen because they wanted to take a young person on and mentor and mastermind. There's 4 individuals. And I never went to college, but I spent 3 years with these individuals before I moved. And I got an MBA, PhD, everything from these 4 individuals in real world education and mentoring and stories and just distinctions, right? I couldn't put a price tag on them. Right. So what I've done is I've taken one young person under my wing in a totally different industry, and I just mentor them. And I don't receive any compensation. I don't do anything. So what I would ask any successful person here is go find a young person and take them under your wing and guide them. Because, I'll say, this is my belief. I think there are a big, vast majority of the young people in our society today are rudderless. They live or die by Instagram and Snapchat. It's unhealthy, right? And we're creating a society that believes that they have to go to college and you have to get a degree and you have to get a job and that's the only path for you. And it's not true. So you can be successful whether you go to school, not go to school. In fact, some kids shouldn't go to school. It's just a waste, right? It's a couple $100,000 down the hole and 4 years of waste of time. Mm-hmm. So, see the world for what it is and speak the truth. Like I've got 3 young adult children and, my daughter graduated, which is great. She was meant to go to school. My 2 boys have joined me in the business. I'm mentoring them. And I said, look, you guys will never work for anybody because you're like me, you're unemployable. So come to me with a business and I'll invest in it, right? When you're ready. In the meanwhile, you're going to bust your hump with me. And you're going to do what I need you to do because I'm going to pay you, right? But you're going to learn how the real world works, not how college tells you it works.
How old are your kids, Joe?
My oldest will turn 25 this year. My middle will turn 23 this year. And my youngest daughter who graduated UCF will turn 22 this year.
What do you hope is the greatest lesson they take from you?
They always say I'm a workaholic, so that's not the lesson. And I'm not. I enjoy what I do. I think that to me that, be resilient. I think being an entrepreneur is it's not glory, man. It sucks sometimes. It's getting through the suck. And, they've seen our game, early on when they were little kids, when there wasn't a lot of resources around, right? You're kind of building something up and you're doing things and, that it's okay to have a vision and then go towards it. I tell any young person, I say, look, if you want to be an entrepreneur, don't wait till you're 40 years old with 3 kids and then go off on your own and have all that stress. Like if you want to go do a business thing, like if you want to be an advisor, you want to be a realtor, you want to be a mortgage dude or person, do it young. Like establish that now, because if you fail, you're not gonna have a wife or kids or a spouse or anything like that. Like now's the time. If you want to take massive risk to build something incredible, do it while you're young. Don't wait until you have all this other stuff. You won't take the risk that may be necessary. Now, I took a huge risk because we're 8 months pregnant with my first child, right? So, I mean, I would not recommend that to anyone, by the way. I would not recommend that process at all, right, going forward. But that's what the advice I'd give. I would love to see, I think there's a lot more entrepreneurs in our society, but I think society is trying to tell them don't do that. It's too risky. You might fail. Who cares? Fail. I fail all the time.
What's fascinating about what you just said is in Brandon Bouchard, he has this high performance journal.
Yep.
And when you go through it and you review your daily and weekly summary, there's a question in there of, did you make, the things you needed to accomplish this day and this week, did you make it a necessity?
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got an 8-month, did you say 8-month-old, or your wife was 8 months?
No, she was pregnant 8 months. So no, I didn't have an 8-month-old. No, if that was the case, that may have never happened.
Yeah.
I may have changed my appetite for risk at that point. So no, we were still getting there.
Well, I think even if you have like young kids, it'll definitely increase the necessity for you to take action.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple clients and, I wish it was my idea. It wasn't. I got two of my clients who their kids, when mom and dad, one's a male, one's female, when they come home, their children ask, what did you do, Daddy? What did you do to grow your business today? Mommy, what did you do to grow your business today? That's the first thing after they say, I love you. Hey, what you do today? That you cannot, you can lie to your kids if you want, but that's tough. That's tough love. And look, I endorse that. I say, you know what? You're either going to lie to your kids or you're going to tell the truth, but they're going to ask the question.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's powerful.
That's the game goes.
That's the way to up your responsibility to take action.
The more you can get uncomfortable, the better, the higher your level of success. And that's what most people don't understand. They're trying to be comfortable and they're just kneecapping their possibility of doing what they want to do.
Joe, I'm going to, we have thousands of people that stream this and, from all different industries. So
sure.
There's no doubt someone's going to connect with you because this has been incredibly powerful, the information and the advice you've given. I have a registered investment advisor that helps me here in Austin. Mm-hmm. And, I'm a big proponent of paying for coaching and
good
and learning and growing. And I'm going to kick him in the ass and tell him he needs to call you.
Yeah.
And tell him to get on the phone with you.
Yeah, look. Any advisor can have 30 minutes of my time, no questions asked, no commitment, no nothing, just for a conversation. I love to, as you can tell, I love doing what I do. I love talking to people. It's not a problem at all.
Well, I'm gonna send him your way to reach out.
Cool.
To you.
I appreciate that.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in to CEO Secrets today. Joe, thanks for being on. And you guys can check this out. If you're listening to this on iTunes, you can always check this out on YouTube. And if you guys check out on Facebook, the Chris Waters Rainmaker Alliance group, we post these on our Facebook page if you want to get early access to it. And if you guys have any questions in the comments section, if you're watching this on Facebook, I'll get to those in a minute. And Joe, I might be sending you an email with some questions people have in our Facebook group. We got well over 1,000 hardcore team building entrepreneurial business owners in that group. So thanks again for your time. And you guys tune in next time to CEO Secrets.